Hey everybody, welcome back to Down and Dirty Modding, where the cameraman is non-existent, so complaining about him doesn't really matter. Today, we're going to get back into our fractal, our Meshify C. You can see we've got the front panel cleared up and mounted up. I think it turned out really great. The color really stands out, and the fact that the light gives the angles, it brings out the angles so well, kind of shocked me. I didn't expect it to be that nice, but I'm very happy that it came out that well. So today we're going to continue with accenting the case, since this is mainly a paint and color mod. And we're going to talk about what you should accent inside of a case. So we've all seen the case that anything that can be disconnected out of here has been painted an accent color. So like everything's accented. And that kind of ruins the whole idea of accents, because then it's not really just like a splash of color to draw your eye to something. It's like, holy crap, everything's some weird color and it's all over the place. And it's hard to look at. It's too busy. So a big thing about accenting is to know how much to accent, where to stop, you know, how it's going to affect, and kind of get an idea of what you want shown off. I mean, that's the whole idea of an accent, is to draw your eye to it. So with this one, we're actually not going to accent a whole lot. We're going to do the power splash route, since it's a huge block of color, and it'll really stand out. We're also going to do this SSD mount in the back. Now you might say, Dave, why are you painting something that's going to be behind a panel? Well, it may not be behind a panel. I don't know yet, but I think that this might have a little bit to show off later, but also it's kind of cool to, you know, do the whole mod. You know, if we're already painting stuff, might as well get it done. That way, when you pull that panel off, it looks good too. So we're going to do those two. Now, you can go in and do fans and stuff like that. I'm not going to do that in this one just because I don't think it needs it. It's a very, very small space. I'm going to be using the fans from the Corsair all-in-one anyway, so I'm really not too worried about them, and it's not going to be like LED'd out or RGB'd or anything like that. We're just going to have basically a bunch of quiet black parts inside this black case with some nice bright vivid accents of green. Now, one thing that you can accent that probably wouldn't look too bad in this case would be the PCIe bracket slot covers, the slot covers. I've seen them accent, and that usually doesn't look too bad. It's kind of one of those things where you can do it or not. Now we are going to be taking these out to mount a vertical GPU mount, or to put in a vertical GPU mount. So we're not going to worry about painting them any exact color. And talking of that, this is the mount we're going to be using. Well, this is the beginning of the mount we're going to be using. I'll put a video up, or a link up here to the video on how to make this. Now we still have to cut out our slot for our GPU, but we want to handle this all in the case, hold the GPU up, make sure we like where it's at, mark it, and then we'll actually get into mounting it up. But one thing to think about, it apparently has dawned on everyone in the tech media recently, or maybe they had it before and it just never was a big thing, but a lot of these cases come with extra slots here on the side now to vertical mount your GPUs. It's become the big thing. And people are starting to realize that, hey man, the GPUs can't breathe when you do that. When you slap them up next to the side panel, they don't get any air. This isn't going to have a problem with that, just because we are using the original mounting location. We're just changing the orientation. So we still have like 2 to 3 inches of good open air in front of it. So it won't hurt breathing on our GPU. And we'll go in, we'll hold the GPU up, kind of eyeball where we want it. Go ahead and cut this bracket out where we want it. Now you might think, well, if you can accent the brackets or the slot covers, are you going to accent this? And I'm going to say no, because this is too big of a piece. I think it would be too broad of a stroke for an accent. I think it would really stand out and detract from everything else. You know, you don't want your eye drawn to some mounting bracket in the back that the GPU is slapped onto. We want that GPU to kind of stand out on its own, have a nice carpet of green underneath it, and it just shows it off on this black background. It's really going to highlight the GPU. So we're going to go with black on this. We'll sand it, prime it, and then we'll go with I think a semi-gloss rattle can black. It's hard to match the finishes on these cases. This is almost a sanded or a sandblasted finish. So I won't have the texture right, but I think a semi-gloss will get us the color. So it will mount up and won't stand out at all, be invisible, which is kind of what we want. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. We're going to start out with removing everything to get it ready for painting. Actually, no, we're not. We're going to hold the GPU up and figure out where we're going to mount it on this first. Then we'll start taking the case apart, and the power supply shroud is going to be a bit of an issue because it's actually riveted in, except for the front panel that gets pulled out. It's riveted in a few spots, so we'll have to unrivet that, drill it out, and then I think we'll actually still have to pull this back panel to open the case enough to get it out. So we'll see about that. Now, God, I can never remember what version of the video I've said things in, but this is basically going to be, once that's out, sand it, prime it, paint it, clear cut it, slap it back in the case. So it's going to be not a whole lot of me dragging on and talking, but mainly just pictures of me painting stuff like last time, which is still just as boring, I'm assuming. So let's go ahead and get into it. We'll pull some things out, figure out a GPU location, mark it out, and then get this thing pulled apart so we can get it ready for painting. So let's start. All right, so we got all the paint done and ready. Now that did take a little longer than I expected, and sometimes paint does, it can drag out. But I did also run into a problem that you may have noticed from the video, and that was dealing with getting the colors to come out because of our base coats. Now, I used a darker primer than I normally would use, a darker gray, and on something like black spray paint, that's not really an issue. You know, we're already working with a dark color, and spray paints put on a pretty thick layer of paint and cover very well usually. But with airbrushing things, it's a lot lighter coat of paint, and this is a lot brighter color. So trying to go over dark colors with that really doesn't work out very well. It takes a lot of paint to build up enough pigment over the top of it to block out that bottom layer. So I wound up going back and spraying these with a white sealer to give me a bright coat to go over the top of. I think a lighter gray primer would have been okay. It would have taken a few coats extra to get that color kind of covered up. But going over a white with light colors really makes them pop, really brings out the vividness of it. Even with darker blues and stuff like that, I noticed that it's a lot easier to get a good blue color over a white base than it is to try to go cover over like a darker color. So that's always something to remember when you're getting ready to paint and picking out your colors and your primers and stuff, is that if you're going with a light color, a lighter colored primer is definitely a good thing to choose, just because it'll be easier to coat and you'll probably wind up with a better product at the end of it. So now that we've got it all painted, we've got clear coat on our green here to kind of protect it a little bit, we're ready to throw everything back in a case, and that's what we're going to do next. All right, now we're going to start by putting this all back together with rivets. Now you don't have to go back with rivets. You can use screws and nuts to put this back together so you can take it apart later. I'm not planning on doing that, so rivets are going to be the easiest way for me to put it back together. If you want to look at how to put in or take out rivets, I've got a nice little video on the tips and tricks to make it easier. And we're just going to use a black anodized aluminum rivet so that they don't stand out against our black case. So we'll try to piece this back together as much as we can and then go back and hit it with the rivets. It is important that you make sure you're getting it all lined up the way it came out. Sometimes that's a bit difficult just because you're never really sure exactly where everything went when you pull it apart. But the more you can do that, the better off you are in the long run, because having one of these tabs off just by a hair can make it almost impossible to get everything back together square. So we'll go ahead and start with our power supply shroud, get all this thrown back together, rivet it up, and then we should be done. All right, so we've got everything in, and nice broad strokes of green, not little pieces here and there, so it really stands out, but doesn't overwhelm the case. It makes it for a good accent color. The back turns out really well. I think our SSDs mounted on that are going to look pretty cool. Now, trying to put the GPU bracket in, I forgot that I need to go in and to do that vertical mount, I've got to cut out these dividers here, these little pieces across. So I'm going to go ahead and just take a Dremel, whack these off real quick to get them out of my way, and then we'll be ready to slap it in and good to go. To finish this up, we're going to throw the front bracket or the front panel on, and I'll also throw our hard drive mounts in, our drive bays. I do want to leave the drive bays in this. I'm not looking to clear everything out just because I want this to be usable. So we're going to slide these back in, screw them down, put the front panel on, and I think we'll be done for the day. All right, so we've got everything back together. The panels are on it. The green doesn't really blast through this tinted panel, which is actually fine by me because I like it a little more subdued. And the front panel does a lot for saying, hey, look, green. But I think we've kept the green down enough that it doesn't slap you around in the face with all the green that you could put into it. So it's a nice, classy green, classy neon green. I never thought I would put those words in a sentence. That doesn't seem right. But it does look pretty good. So we've got a couple more things I want to do to the case before we're ready for hardware. So we'll be back next time with at least one of those mods, maybe two, maybe there's three. I don't know. You just have to keep coming back and checking it out, right? But if you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to see what comes up next or the next mod that I'm going to be doing, hit the subscribe. If you got questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down in the comment section below. I will get back to you. I swear, it takes me a couple of days. I read your comments. I can't really think of what to say right offhand, so I start thinking about it, and I forget about it for 2 or 3 days, and I'm like, oh crap, I was supposed to reply to that. So it does take me a little while to get back to it just because I like to actually put thought into what I'm saying. So, but don't let that stop you from leaving me comments. I like talking with you all, and if I can, I've had a lot of great ones where people are like, hey, that was awesome. It showed me how I could do this, or that it was easier to think, than I thought. And that's great stuff because that's what these all videos are all about, is getting you out there and modding stuff and seeing that, hey, this stuff isn't out of your reach. You can do it on your own, and it's not that hard. So I'm rambling now, so I think I'll stop. But yeah, hit the like, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment, and make sure to check back with us in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll be knocking another mod out on this case. So I will talk to you all later, and have a good one. Get out there and mod something.